Hey there. In my network of really smart friends, I found someone who knows something that you would really want to know about negotiations. And that is, how do you read people? So one of my dear friends, a peer, is the co-founder and CEO of an organization called Merrill Research. And Merrill Research is a custom, full-service, multidimensional research firm. It was started in 1986, and they help bring new products into the market for companies. And they also help them with their strategic communications. Now, as part of that experience, the next person you're about to hear from is also co-founder and CEO of the Merrill Institute for Nonverbal Intelligence. And that's more of the body language. It's body language certification, and it's a training organization. And that was founded in 2016. So you all, I would love to introduce you to my friend, an amazing peer, David Schneer. David, welcome.
Linda, thank you. It's great to see you again.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Well, what's exciting is you're going to help us learn how do you really read people in negotiations. And I know your background comes from research. Can you tell me a little bit about, how you got started in watching people and their behavior?
Okay. So earlier when you introduced me as the CEO of Merrill Research, which is a multidisciplinary company, that's important because we do two things. We do large-scale quantitative surveys where we ask a lot of yes/no questions, and then we do what is called qualitative research, which is interviewing people and asking about their feelings and their emotions. And that's where I came in. That was my expertise. And over the almost 4 decades of talking to thousands and thousands of people in focus groups, in clinics, over the phone, over Zoom, in their homes, in their offices, everywhere, I learned how to read people such that it became very obvious to me very quickly that oftentimes what came out of their mouths was not what their bodies were saying.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so tell me a little bit, how do you read people in any interaction, but especially in negotiations? How did you see, you said you have to watch people. So what does that mean?
Well, let's say that I'm conducting a research study and I'm in a one-on-one interview.
Sure.
And I'm talking to somebody like you and I ask them a question, and what comes out of their mouth is, yeah, that's fine. But what their body tells me is something completely different. And so, for example, I was talking to one individual. He's a value-added reseller. I was asking him questions about certain manufacturers. And I asked him, I said, so are all manufacturers the same in terms of how they support you in the channel? And he said, no, some are better than others. And so at that point, I had an opportunity to either ask him a question, which would have allowed him to think of an answer, or posit a supposition and watch the answer come across his face. So what happened was, throughout this research study, we began to hear some issues about one particular manufacturer. And so I just blurted that manufacturer's name out to this VAR. And I said, Acme. And what he says, oh, yeah, they're fine. But what happened was I saw a micro expression of disgust, a micro expression of contempt. He reeled back in his chair and he looked away. But what came out of his mouth was, they're okay. Now, at that point, I knew something was up. And so I leaned back in and I said, Mr. Barr, I'm sensing there's more to the story about Acme Corporation. And he said, well, yeah, Dave. He lets out a cathartic sigh and he says, I said they were okay from the standpoint that everybody knows Acme Corporation. So from a customer awareness standpoint, they're awesome, but I'll never do business with them again. And I said, why not? And he said, well, because they violated deal registration and they went around my back. Now, a less experienced interviewer would have likely let that go and taken what comes out of the person's mouth. And we all do that. We're fixated on what comes out of the person's mouth. So that's how those observations work in research, but the same principles apply in real life.
So you had said you watch people, you watch the reactions, and then you've told me that you establish a baseline. What does that mean? You establish a baseline of normal behaviors. So how do you do that, David?
Well, just from, let's say, talking with you in the last 5-10 minutes, I've established a baseline about some of the things that you do. For example,
no.
No, this is great. You tend to have your eyes wide open when because you're excited. Now, in other people, that might be a surprise or some sort of other indication. But with you, it's just what you do. So already I have a baseline. And what happens is I begin to look for when you don't do those things. We all have peculiar and idiosyncratic eye movements, mouth movements, but there are things that are quite universal and very good indicators that something's not quite right.
Interesting. Well, I know that I've been advised not to have my eyes too wide open because I look like, something's wrong. So that's interesting that I do that when I'm interested. And also that some people look like deer in the headlights. Yeah. You have said too, that it's interesting to, negotiate in person. And that when we do that, we might want to have a glass table. Okay, what is that about? Because I had a glass table growing up and we were always having to Windex it. So I never wanted to have it. Why would I want to have a glass table?
I get the cleaning of the glass table thing. I do. And I work in focus group facilities all over the world. And some of them have glass tables and some of them don't. I prefer glass tables for one simple reason, and that is you can see the lower extremities. The feet are the most honest part of the body. The feet are always pointed in the direction that you want to go. And so I can see the feet. I can see what is called a leg cleansing or thigh cleansing. If you've ever seen somebody rubbing their thighs like this.
Right. What does that mean?
It's a stressor.
Oh.
They're uncomfortable. They're soothing themselves for some reason. So the more of the person's body that you can see, the better it is, because even on Zoom right now, I'm seeing your face, but I also see your torso, and your torso tells me a lot.
Okay. What does it tell me?
Well, for example, if I asked you a question that you didn't truly know the answer to, you would give me probably a shrug. Okay.
Maybe not know it, but I would just kind of do like that or something interesting.
Yeah, you would, I don't really know. Now, if I asked you a question and I saw you say, I don't really know, and I saw only one shoulder go up.
Okay.
That is a reliable indicator that there is something amiss. And the reason is because it's not symmetrical.
I didn't do both.
When you're in symmetry, you're in harmony. You truly don't know. So let's say you go down to your mailroom at your office or whatever, and you ask the head of distribution there, hey, has my package gone out? He says, yeah, I think so. My guess is if you dug a little deeper, you'd find out that the package hasn't gone out and there's probably an issue with it. And he just didn't want to share it because he's probably thinking he's going to fix it later. So, those are the things that you can apply in negotiations, right? The same principle. If you get the opportunity to go point by point, and I know in earlier discussions, that's not always possible. But if you do, it's a wonderful way to check where the body disagrees at each point.
Oh, so if you're going through a negotiation and you have a contract or you have different points you're going to address, you can say, okay, so now about the funding, and watch them on each piece of the funding part. Or, well, I'm a little worried about this insurance. And they go, oh, well, you start looking at the different, as you call them out, sort of like the Acme brick, and see what they do to that actual question or those words and compare.
That's
is
right.
it really fine, or is it really not fine? Or are they thinking that you're going to take it or something else? Very interesting.
So,
all right. Yeah.
it's let's say you have most contracts are, if they're of any significant amount, they're generally pretty long, but you would definitely want to go through the contracts and be able to watch things like pressed lips. So you're talking about the financing of this deal, and all of a sudden you see the CFO's lips go pressed.
What does that mean, David?
That's a highly reliable indicator that they're in disagreement. It's a highly reliable indicator of anger and frustration. Pressed lips. And
are they trying to keep the truth away? Are they trying not to get mad at you? What are they doing with those pursed lips, those pressed lips?
They're trying to keep it inside, and it's not working.
Contain it inside.
Yeah, and it's not working because they're pressing so hard on their lips that the red lips are now turning white. So the whiter they are, the madder they are. Almost
so it's like white knuckling, except it's white lips. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
If you're talking to somebody and you see them do this, and you see the whiteness of their knuckles,
right?
Highly reliable indicator of stress, as is this.
What does this mean?
That's a highly reliable indicator of stress. Disagreement is rubbing his fingers. The hands give so much away.
That is great. Okay, we have a couple more that you told me about. Where you pay attention to exhaling. When they exhale, what does that mean?
That's usually a release of tension or stress. And, when I was a kid growing up, I could hear my mother in the kitchen she always just seemed so stressed out with getting the meals done. But that's why it's advised that people who play cards shouldn't wear headsets so that they can hear these things when they're opponents. That's usually a fairly reliable indicator that there's a bad hand.
Interesting. And there's also like a tongue snapping or titch, or how would you say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that like shame on you, or what is that?
That is a highly reliable indicator of something is amiss, often associated with deceit. If you remember Congressman Anthony Weiner, if you ever watch that interview where he just kind of melts down and becomes the poster boy for deceit, you'll hear him answer questions with a titch. Later on, we learn, of course, he was kind of lying through his teeth. But that's what a titch is. Okay,
and then rapid breathing is another one. What do we need to worry? Are they just trying to get oxygen into their brain? What does rapid breathing mean?
Well, if somebody starts to not hyperventilate like a dog, but starts to talking and trying to catch their breath and trying to just fill their lungs with air, that can be a highly reliable indicator of deceit and stress. Okay. And that's one of the things that a lie detector test will measure.
It's one of the things it picks up is the heart. It's not just the heartbeat, but it's how they breathe and a change in breathing style, right?
Correct.
And then the last one that you had said was paraverbals. Am I saying that right? How someone says something?
Paraverbals, yeah. How somebody, it's not what you say often that communicates, but how you say it. So if I say, "Hey, Linda," as opposed to "Hey, Linda," that has different meanings. That could be taken differently. And oftentimes people start off on the wrong foot by using the wrong tone of voice. For example, parents are notorious for yelling at their kids. And then they wonder why their kids are looking at them like a deer in the headlights, because the parents have just hijacked your kid's limbic system and they don't know how to react. If you really want to get somebody's attention, you lower your voice.
Oh, is that when you want to get someone's attention, you whisper? Remember that commercial?
Yeah, you just bring it down a notch and make it not so emotionally charged.
Got it.
You will turn somebody on. Now, it's really hard to do, especially for me. But sometimes in focus groups, it's difficult to control that. But it's important, right?
Oh, I love it, because I've sabotaged a conversation with my children, especially where I was so mad they couldn't hear anything. You're right. The tone of my voice kept them from hearing any of the words I said. Hey, David, This is fascinating. Will you come back and talk to us later about, preparation and how we can do the best in negotiation?
Absolutely. Anytime. It's a lot of fun. There's so many things that we have yet to scratch the surface on.
Great. That's
a lot
great.
of material. So yeah, let me know anytime. And thank you for having me. It's been great.
Oh, you too. Oh, and look, we're doing symmetric, the symmetry thing. So that's good.
The pyramid, learn to use that.
The big thing is everything you want to do. Of course, you want to tell the truth. You want to communicate well. This is just one more thing. So everyone, please go negotiate. You can do this. Listen to what David said and think about, are your words matching your reactions and what you really want to convey? I'm Linda Swindling. Thanks again, David.
Thank you.